Hold on, guys. Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. Welcome back to another press conference reaction stream. Yes, we are back for the presser. Erik ten Hag has been talking to the assembled media in Carrington ahead of Manchester United's trip back to the capital for Crystal Palace versus Manchester United. Of course, it's the evening, the evening kickoff on Saturday at Selhurst Park. 5:30 kickoff, and Manchester United got some demons to exercise after what happened last season, at the end of last season, just a mere few months ago, really. It was in May of 2024. We went to Selhurst Park. We got absolutely smashed by 4-0, and we've got to try and, again, kind of exercise some demons. That's hopefully what we're going to do on Saturday. And as you can expect, quite a lot of the press conference was dominated by this whole how much have you improved, how much have you changed since that press conference, since that match back in May. Also a lot of chatter about injuries, also a lot of chatter about Rasmus Hojlund, Mason Mount. Are they going to be available? Will they be available? Of course, we know they're back in Manchester United training after the pictures that were put out yesterday and today. Also, some questions about Marcus Rashford. Of course, he scored in consecutive games after not scoring since March, prior to last weekend's victory over Southampton. So some chatter about that. So there's plenty to get into. So be sure to smash the like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. KG, that comedian, he will probably be watching this at some point because it's his favourite show. KG does love a press conference. He's mentioned it several times. He says the press conference show is my favourite show. Sometimes because this season they've moved the press conferences like a day earlier. Usually they for the last several years they were always Friday 1:30 p.m. Now they're like Thursday at like 4:30, 4:45, 5 o'clock. Sometimes that's what it was today. So sometimes they can be a bit later. Sometimes we can't always get to them, but we're getting to them today. So yes, click the like button. You know what to do. I can see people filing in. We've got Nuruddin saying good evening. We've got Skilliani says at least Elise can't haunt us again. Joel says big up from San Diego, California. Peter says good evening, everyone. Good evening. As everyone does file in. Before we do get to Ten Hag's comments as well, I must say, and this probably gets into a little bit of sort of preview territory. Preview will be coming out tomorrow, probably about midday. Flex and myself will preview the game on Saturday at Selhurst Park. And honestly, I think it's a combination of a couple of things. I think it's the combination of, obviously, 2 wins in a row. Never hurt anyone, did it? But also, Crystal Palace haven't started the season particularly well. It's probably famous last words, isn't it? But they don't feel like they were the team that ended last season on such a high note. And really, they were like a lot of people's, not like dark horses in terms of, they're going to go really high in the league, but like one to watch of, actually, they could finish, you never know, sort of top 8, top 7, something like that. They could be in and around that kind of group because of the way they finished last season. But of course, they have lost some players. They have lost Elise. Anderson has also gone. So there was this kind of, what we kind of going to be really getting from Palace. And what we've got thus far hasn't been what we saw last season. Now, granted, it's Manchester United. It's one of the biggest games of the season for any club when Manchester United rolls into town. Cameras will be there. It's live on Sky Sports. This would be the game, wouldn't it? That Crystal Palace suddenly click into life and suddenly we see the Palace of last season, so you can't get too carried away at all. But Manchester United, after a difficult start, are in a pretty good place in terms of confidence. Obviously, confidence rock bottom on the floor after the Liverpool game and during the whole international break. I think we saw that for the first 30 minutes, didn't we, at Southampton? We saw a team that wasn't in a good place, was not playing well, had no confidence. Fortunately, be playing one of the lesser teams in the league and start to build up some confidence there. Of course, then you play Carabao Cup, 7-0. It's funny, isn't it? Because for all of the... There's a lot of fun police, isn't there? But for all of the fun police, it's only Barnsley. I think the majority... Unless I'm mistaken, I think everyone knew it was only Barnsley. I think pretty much everyone who was celebrated said it's only Barnsley. But we have also seen some bigger teams struggle against some lower teams. Look what happened to Spurs last night. They had to get a goal in the last minute to beat Coventry, didn't they? No. So 7-0, 7-0. You know, if you beat Barnsley 3-0, you go, I didn't get too carried away with that. You don't get too carried away when you win 7-0. But scoring 7 goals, it's not bad going. It's not bad going at all. So I think Man United actually got more momentum coming out of that game than they probably ever thought they would have, really. So United are in a bit of good momentum at the moment. But as we said, coming into this sort of batch of fixtures, didn't we? We said, look, you got to win against Southampton, you got to win against Barnsley, and it's now these games: Palace away, Spurs at home. Obviously, the Europa League games are in there. Porto away, FC20 at home. After that, you got Spurs at home. These are the games now where you sort of go, right, no messing around, get victories there, and then it's like, okay, you really have, I hate the phrase turn the corner at this point, but you really have started to kick on, and it was just a bit of a stumbling start to the season with that late defeat against Brighton, and obviously being played off the park at home against Liverpool. Now you've moved on, now you've picked up some victories, and by the end of October, the table does start to kind of settle into the sort of pattern you think it is going to. Not that again, that's totally the same, because look at Chelsea for last season, for a large portion of it, they were bottom half. And then they finished, in sixth for the end, so it's not where you start, it's where you finish, isn't it? Indeed. Right, let's get some of these quotes, and obviously one of the biggest talking points was, are Rasmus Hojlund and Mason Mount, are they going to be fit? What is the status with them? Naturally, that was the first question. Come from Simon Peach going, Eric, team news. What about Rasmus Hojlund, Mason Mount? Fit start? Are they going to be involved on Saturday? And Eric Ten Hag said, it's very good news. They are back in the pitch. They are back in team training. We have to decide whether they are fit enough to start on Saturday. But it's very pleasing. They are fit and back in the squad. Now, this naturally got to the question, because Eric kind of dodged it a little bit. So does that mean they're going to be involved in any capacity? And Eric Ten Hag says, we have so many games in this block to cover. So very, very happy. We have to make the final call. They did a couple of trainings. We have to see how they recover. And tomorrow they will make the final call. So very non-committal. I would probably lean into neither one's going to start. I don't think is going to be the case. Could be wrong. Could be wrong on that one, but I don't really see them starting, if all honesty, because where would they kind of go into the team, really? Rasmus Hojlund, it's not. We kind of spoke about this morning on the Morning View, Flex and myself. It's not like it was last season where we've only got one striker. I know technically we had two, but Antony Martial was out for pretty much the majority of the season. So we only had one striker, a sort of recognised natural striker that could play. So every time when Hojlund was out with injury, whenever he was back, it was like, put him in, play him. We need a striker. It's not like that at the moment. Of course, we've got Joshua Zirkzee fit and available. So you don't need, and to be honest with Zirkzee, it's a question about him. Does he start? Do you go with Rashford up front like you did on Tuesday? Do you go with a false nine or something like that? United do have the fortune, I suppose, of options, don't we? We do have options in that position. I think Zirkzee will probably start again because I don't think there'll be that many changes from the game against Southampton. Probably Eriksen out, Ugarte in, and then you're looking at probably near enough the same starting 11, I would think, so possibly one change. So I think if Hojlund is involved, it's on the bench. And I think that's the same with Mason Mount. I think he would, if he is involved, he would be on the bench. Wouldn't even really be surprised if Mason Mount wasn't that involved in any capacity, because they did say, didn't they, with him, that he was back earlier than expected. And because he was back earlier than expected, there was this desire not to rush him. We spoke once again this morning about Mason Mount. And in my opinion, if you're going to judge his time at the moment at Manchester United, which of course is not complete, but if you're going to judge his time and say, Mason Mount, how has it worked out at United? You would say, well, it hasn't. It's been a flop thus far. He's been injured for the majority of the time, not for one injury, but for several sort of muscular injuries, which are a concern. And on top of that, we still have the same question when we signed him in the first place, which is, what's his position? Where does he fit? What is his role? You kind of maybe felt at the beginning of the season that maybe he had started to sort of find his role a little bit in terms of he was going to be this, in that sort of 4-2-4, 4-4-2 system, was going to be the guy that was pressing from the front and full of energy. And when United were doing the high press, that's what Mason Mount was going to do. But in doing it for, I guess, a combined period of about 90 minutes, because again, he came off as a sub in both games, he got hurt. He got injured doing it, which again is a concern. And even since then, it feels like we've maybe kind of pivoted away from doing that once more. So once again, you have the the discussion of, okay, well, where does he fit then? Where does he fit into what Man United want to do? And I think that's different from the argument that Adam was making on Monday on the red carpet, where he was sort of saying, about players not being happy because they're sitting on the bench. What does that mean if players not going to be playing every game because there's another player in his position? I think that's slightly different from the Mason Mount discussion, because it's like it's not a case of he's not going to be happy because he's going to be sitting on the bench. It's a case of where does he fit in that? And if we're coming to the sort of classification of Mount that he is just this squad player, he's a player that increases the depth of the squad. He's a good squad player to have, and he can come off the bench or he can be used in certain games, and that's great. But that's a lot of money, isn't it, for a guy that had 1 year left on his contract just to be a squad player. So I think that's that's quite. It's not to say he can't turn it round. His career at Manchester United is not finished just yet, so who knows what the future looks like for Mason Mount. But it would have to be a very injury-free period, wouldn't it, for him to turn it around, in my opinion, anyway. But again, I wouldn't be shocked if he wasn't involved, because I just think that he has come back a bit soon. And we do actually have, at the moment, quite a few midfielders available, don't we? With Ugarte, Casemiro, Kobe. Christian Eriksen's played the last few games. My goodness me. I mean, he scored twice against Barnsley, and he played pretty well in the end against Southampton. Don't think he starts against Palace. I don't think it's going to be that game for him. But, you've got Toby Collier, played left back, did kind of struggle a bit, grew into the game. He's not a left back, he's a midfielder. But suddenly there, you do have midfield options. So, once again, a bit like Rasmus Hojlund, there isn't this desire to be like, right, we've got to rush him into the side. We desperately need him right now. He has to start. That's not the case. So when it comes to that, again, I think that it's max bench for both of them. Possibly, maybe Mount isn't even involved. Maybe they wait a little bit longer because there are games coming up. And then obviously when it comes to the Mason Mount situation with the number, you could probably go back to when that news came through about Mason Mount that he was going to be number 7. I still, at the time, casting my mind back, could not believe it. I could not believe it. I saw it. It might have been even the Muppeteers, I think, that was sort of said it. I went, oh, by the way, he's number 7, And I was like, what? I was like Stone Cold Steve Austin. I went, he's by the way, he's number 7. And it was like, what? Number 7. What? Did you say number? What? Number 7. And then that led to the argument from some, which I still can't believe was even an argument at the time, going, it's only a number. It doesn't matter that much. And you go, come on. Don't start saying it doesn't matter, because it does. At Manchester United, it does. And I know we've had, in recent years, some number 7s that maybe haven't lived up to the hype, but the number matters at Manchester United. Of course it matters. And of course, it adds just an extra level of scrutiny on Mason Mount. If he wasn't the number 7 at this point, let's say he's number 28 or something like that, would he be getting as much scrutiny? He'd be getting a lot, but he wouldn't have that extra part of, and by the way, he's number 7. That shows how much the number matters. If any other number doesn't get brought up, really, does it? But 7 is going to get brought up because it matters, because the number 7 is important to Manchester United. I was an advocate at the time for resting it and giving it to Alejandro Garnacho, but that didn't happen. Maybe it will happen in the future eventually. Maybe that will be the case. We shall see. Right. Now let's move on and go to the next quotes, which were about, again, the last time we played Crystal Palace, because of course when we went to Selhurst Park at the end of last season, back in May, just a few months ago, it was a disaster, wasn't it? It was an absolute shit show that day, because we were terrible. It was the game, according to Laurie Whitwell and others of The Athletic, that made Manchester United reconsider the future of Erik ten Hag. After that game, they had a meeting in Monaco and started saying, maybe Erik isn't the guy for us. We should start looking around, and started having those conversations with agents, and started having those conversations with possibly other managers. That's how impactful that game was. And Erik ten Hag was asked about that game and reflecting on it, saying it didn't go well. What did you learn? And is it an experience you keep at the back of your mind? Ten Hag said it was 4-0, totally deserved, but Saturday will be different. I don't compare the situations. From February onwards, we had to find 11 players to construct a team. Now it is 18, and we can pick one. He also, it's about the Marcus Rashford, we can leave that bit. But yeah, he basically said about, it's not really a comparable situation. It's about, it was a time which we basically had no players. It was just, again, one of those things, basically. And to be fair, I do largely agree with what he is saying there, because you do have to cast your mind back. Now, that game was such a strange one, because going into the game, we all knew, largely, we were going to lose. Because of the injuries and the defenders that we had at the time. We knew it was going to be Casemiro at the back. We didn't know if we had any other centre-backs. In the end, it was a Johnny Evans that failed a fitness test prior to kick-off. As Erik ten Hag says, some players were sort of 20% fit to play, which he's talking about Johnny Evans in that regard. So we went into that match knowing we are going to lose this one. We are going to lose because we've got no players, basically. I think what we didn't anticipate, certainly what I did not anticipate, was it was as bad as it was going to be. Because we knew we were going to lose. We knew we were missing players. We knew we were in a bad place, but it was the lack of effort. And I think maybe that's what caused the sort of football leadership team at the time to go, maybe we've got to consider alternatives then, because some of the people just don't look like they're bothered, or they don't look like they're trying. And the performance was so bad that people were surprised that the away support still managed to applaud the Manchester United players, and they didn't deserve it. I mean, and that's why, look, I know that lots of people always say about their own clubs, but with Manchester United, it's a bona fide fact. The Manchester United away travelling support is the best support in the Premier League, arguably the world, yeah? They will back their team regardless. It's the hardest of hardcore, and those players that day did not deserve a golf clap, let alone, big thunderous applause and cheers after a game which they lost 4-0, and they really did not put an effort in at all. It was a shocking display, and it was a tough time. But I do agree with Erik ten Hag in the sense of you can't really compare the situations from then to now, which seems strange because it wasn't that long ago, because it only was just a couple of months ago. But the circumstances are quite a lot different. As Erik ten Hag says, we do have a large amount of players now available, which we didn't have at the time. Crystal Palace feel like a different entity to what they were at the end of last season too, like I was alluding to at the beginning of the stream. They've had a difficult start to the season. They just barely got a point against Leicester last weekend, and that's newly promoted Leicester, and that was in the form of a last-minute penalty. So it does feel like it's amazing what can happen in a couple of months, isn't it? You can go from having no players, being outplayed, not doing anything, basically for 90 minutes, getting ripped apart. In the case of Casemiro afterwards, people saying, go to the MLS, go to Saudi, your career's over, which the jury still might be a bit out on that one. But, fast forward a couple of months, suddenly you've got a fit squad, the other team hasn't had the best start to the season, and now, like, the prospect of going to Selhurst Park a couple of weeks ago was horrifying, wasn't it? When we played Liverpool, and we went, we've got to go to Palace. Oh, we're gonna lose. I was saying that. I'm sure on some of the shows, go Palace, and we're gonna lose. Of course, we're gonna lose away from home against Palace. Look what happened in May. Now, suddenly, sirens in the chat. Now suddenly, a couple of wins. You're not having the injury troubles that you had towards the end of last season. They haven't started very well, and then there's this sort of air of confidence, a little bit of actually, yeah, we can go. Which it's still kind of wild that it's Manchester United, and you have to do, yeah, we can go and win at Selhurst. We can go beat Crystal Palace away from home. If this was 10 years ago, and you heard a Manchester United fan say that, you go, are you out of your mind? Of course you can go to Palace and win. Whereas now, we have to sort of talk ourselves into it a little bit and have to sort of go, yeah. Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can go to Crystal Palace and get. Yeah, we can. We can do that. We could do. Yeah, of course we can. So that's where we're kind of at now. So I do agree with him in the sense that it's not totally comparable. The situations are different, and the only hope is that not only is the result different, but the performance is different as well. Because it was just a complete shit show, wasn't it? It was just a complete horror show, that game. And like I said, it was so bad. Not that going into the game we knew we were going to lose, but it was so bad that, according to the reports, it led to a very big shift in the direction and thinking of the football leadership team, that they started going, let's talk maybe to some other people. And it was only the FA Cup that kind of turned that around, and some other talks with some other people too. So yes, that's it's pretty wild how much has changed in a few months. Or maybe you'll think that maybe a lot hasn't changed. Redwan says, do you live in a police station? Because I hear all the sirens. You know what it is? I've said this many a time. I'm not near a police station at all, actually. I'm just near a main road, a really busy road. What it is, I'm surprised you don't hear more cars, in all honesty. Because it's just, I'm just off a road. That's what it is. So yeah, it's what it is. I used to, and it's amazing what your brain gets used to, because I don't even really notice it that much anymore. I used to, when I was younger, I used to live right close to a big Air Force base, and you obviously get lots of planes. You get lots of planes coming over, and you just get used to it. And whenever I go back there now, I'm like, oh my God, how are you? How do you deal with this? Because it's constant airplanes. But when you live there, you just kind of just block it out. You don't even notice it anymore. It's amazing what your brain can get used to and just sort of filter out, which is an interesting tangent. We've got over 500 people watching. We're under 200 likes. If you haven't already, click the like button and be sure to subscribe as well whilst you're at it. A reminder what's going to be coming tomorrow. We've got, obviously, the morning show. We are going to have a preview tomorrow, Flex and myself, previewing the game on Saturday. And we're going to have the Trinity, not powered by anyone, just the Trinity on United View. And then Saturday, of course, will be match day as well. Right, let's move back to some more quotes from Erik ten Hag. First, about Marcus Rashford. Now, this was about Rashford scoring a couple of goals in consecutive games for Marcus. And Erik ten Hag was asked, how good is it seeing Rashford score goals again? Of course, when he scored against Southampton, it was his first since March. I didn't even realise it was that long. Granted, you have the whole summer, so it makes it seem quite longer. But again, not good. He said, very good. Of course, your striker starting to score when the season is very young. Strikers need that belief. Very good for the team. It will strengthen their belief. And this is exactly why Marcus Rashford started against Barnsley on Tuesday. If you watch the match view at the time, in between the inevitable freak out, as we always say on the match view, there are 3 points of freak out on a match day. Team lose, half-time, full-time. Every single time a team is selected by any Manchester United manager, because it just happened under Ollie, Ralph, now Eric. When the team news comes out, meltdown until the game begins. I can't believe he's picked this guy, or he hasn't picked this guy. I can't believe he's doing this. I can't believe he's doing that. It's just always. I don't think there will ever be a time that any Manchester United manager, irrespective of Erik ten Hag or not, any Manchester United manager can pick a team where unanimously everyone will go, that's a really good team, I'm really happy with that. It will never happen. Ever, ever, ever. Even if we were like, I mean, it would have been amazing to see back in like towards the end of sort of Fergie's era, you know, sort of around those sort of 2010, 2011, 2012 period where like the United team on paper was not great. But Sir Alex managed just to get out results. Like, for instance, when we play Arsenal in the FA Cup and he plays like 8 defenders or something like that, could you imagine what the reaction would have been at the time? Oh, my God. He's doing what? I can't believe he's playing 8 defenders. Oh, my goodness me. It's all the time. So when the team news came out on Tuesday, and there was a bit of pushback, why is he playing Rashford up front? Why is he playing Rashford at all? I was a bit surprised because I thought he would just rest Rashford. I thought it was going to be Garnacho, and I thought it was going to be Antony, and I thought maybe Xerxes, he might need the goal. But when I saw Rashford start, it, to be honest, made all the sense in the world. How did he get the best out of Marcus Rashford in his first season? He just played him. He just played him over and over and over and over again. All comps. He played him. Whether it was Carabao Cup, FA Cup, Europa League, against rubbish teams, he played him so he would score goals. And that season where he scored all of those goals, a lot of them are in those cup competitions. You know, that's why since he made his debut, he scored more League Cup goals than anyone else. Because he plays them all the time. Because that's how you get Marcus Rashford into form. You know, because he is just purely a confidence player at this point. We know that he's not very consistent. You know, his form is up and down. It was largely a purple patch a couple of years ago. So how do you get him into form? You just keep playing him over and over and over again. When you play teams that aren't that great, you play him and you hope that he gets a couple of goals. Why? Because he just get his confidence up. And that's what he did. And he scored a couple of goals. You know, that's the game plan with Marcus Rashford. So he'll play at the weekend. The hope would be that he scores again. If he doesn't, Europa League on Thursday against FC Twente, or is it Wednesday? Because now they're all over the place. I don't know what days football isn't on at this point. But when we play FC Twente at home, Rashford will probably play. He'll probably play. Why? Because he'll want him to get goals. As KG says, it's the stat pattern. That's how he gets the best out of Marcus Rashford. So that's his mindset. And whilst he is scoring goals, you can't really make an argument to drop him. You know, whilst he's contributing, it's when he's not doing anything. That's when the real sort of discussion comes in about: do you take him off? When do you take him out? Should he take him out early? He shouldn't persist with him as long as he does, etc., etc. And I'm with that. But whilst he's scoring goals, whilst it's working, you keep him in. And you know, to be honest, I look at it as Ten Hag kind of knowing his player in that case and going, look, the only way to make Marcus Rashford work is got to keep playing him. You know, and play him in those games, build up goals. So he did it on Tuesday and it worked. And if he scores against Palace on Saturday, then once again you'd have to look at that game on Tuesday and go, well, I can see why he did it then, because it's working. he's getting him into confidence. So there you go. We got a members chat here from Starlord's been for 27 months. My goodness me. Says big up absolutely everyone. Hopefully 3 points at the weekend. My 11 is Onana, Mazraoui, Delict, Martinez, Dalot, Kobe, Ugarte, Bruno, Garnacho, Ahmad, and Rashford. No Joshua Xerxes. Like I said, it'll be interesting to see what he does do regarding the striker and where to put Marcus Rashford, etc. What else are people saying here in the chat? Skiliano says, I think United managers who don't win get a negative reaction to team news, as United haven't been successful since Fan Channel started. We've never experienced the pre-match calm. I don't know. I don't know. The problem is when Sir Alex was the manager, he could put out any team and anyone would go, you know, who am I to argue with that, basically? Like you say, it will be interesting if, you know, hopefully, it's not too far in the future, Man United start winning big trophies or what have you. Will the freak out stop with team news and stuff like that? I feel like no, because I just feel like that's social media nowadays. Social media is a place to vent and just kind of complain. like it's a, you know, and I put myself into that category too. But I feel like we could be top of the league and we'd put a team out and we'd be like, oh no, this team's shit. this team, I can't believe they're doing this. It's just, yeah, it's kind of constant, isn't it? Red Baron says, is it a coincidence that when Mount is in training, he wasn't on United District? Well, yeah, possible. Steffi Jenks says, I think you should stop saying freak out. The thing is, it is that though, isn't it? Like, legitimately. I mean, freak out, meltdown, it's the same thing. I mean, whenever that team news comes out, oh my God, it is brutal. Whenever it comes out, it's like, you Yeah, and obviously, if you're the one delivering the news, heaven forbid, you pick the team. It's it's bad. It's bad. Like I said, that will happen at the weekend most likely. So to be fair though, sometimes when the reaction isn't that negative, sometimes the result ends up being terrible. It's, damn it. It's mad. Next one was about managing these injuries, and it was about, you mentioned Hojlund and Mount, a few injuries. How much do they need a run of fitness, and how much you have to be careful? And Ten Hag said, careful and top football, you always go to boundaries. It's not avoidable, but when you have a full squad available, that then it is easier to manage the load. When you're in circumstances like last season and there is a need to play, we have to overload them. We hope we can integrate them in a very careful way. And I think that what he's it's an interesting thing that he's saying there, isn't it? It's an interesting thing that he's saying, basically saying that last season I would have liked not to rush some of the players back, but I had no choice, basically. And it was a vicious cycle, that players get injured, but because more players are getting injured, we have to rush those players back. We have to rush those players back into the team, even though they're going to continue to get injured, basically, which is a bit of a vicious cycle. I just hope, once again, that those injury issues are in the past. I don't know. I don't feel confident enough. I don't feel confident enough to say that those injury issues are in the past, because you feel like with Manchester United, there's only one game away, because we are still one game away from a complete meltdown, aren't we? Really. If we lost at the weekend, it's back to where we were a couple of weeks ago, which is, damn. Nothing's working, nothing's changed. Manchester United are in the mud, Eric's in the mud. We were never going to succeed. Fine margins, I believe one Norwegian manager used to talk about. Fine margins of Manchester United. I've never heard of the like about it. Next quote was about the progress that's been made since that defeat back in May. And I'm not really sure what Ten Hag was kind of saying with this one, but he said, maybe you can also compare it with the FA Cup final. Don't compare it. The circumstances in that moment in the season from February on, we had to find every time 11 players who can construct a team, and now we are in a different place. We have 18 players. We can now pick a team. So he sort of was saying, there's nothing we've learned. There's nothing we've learned from that situation, or there's no progress. It's impossible to make progress since then because it was just completely different. Which like I said earlier on, I do agree with largely what he's saying there, by saying that it's difficult to compare because, it's difficult. It's difficult to compare because you can't. They are different circumstances essentially. So yeah, as far as how much progress has been made, I think he's sort of saying we can't judge it. Either way, which I suppose is positive and negative. Basically, if he's saying, look, if we win the game 3-0, you can't go, that's massive progress since last time because it's completely different from last time. But, be shameless and take it anyway. But he's not really, as Austin said today, he's not really saying anything in that one, in that regard. So, yes. It's different circumstances. It's, that is the answer to that one. Tywin's very... he didn't say any of that. What do you mean, bro? It's different circumstances. He ain't wrong. I agree. I agree. It's cool. It's cool, Tywin. It's fine. It is different circumstances. Just did 35 minutes on its different circumstances. It's cool. Skiliano says, we can judge it. Liverpool turned us over at home. No problem. Things ain't getting better. Well... Again, you could judge it maybe negatively in the sense of if it's 4-0 again, you could say that, that's not good. Your circumstances should be better now. The reason you didn't win 4-0 last time was because you didn't have the players, you didn't have the injuries. What's it this time? Arguably, Palace are in a worse situation. If you win, you should win. Man United really should win that game at the weekend, I think. Given the players that they've got available, given Palace's start, they should win. I'd look at Man United. I mean, again, I know our away record's not great, but as probably the favourites going into that game. Because I know the start of the season hasn't been amazing domestically, but a couple of wins in a row. Palace aren't in the best form. United should win. But to his point, it's difficult to really compare the two because that was a pretty unique scenario at the time, which was we've got no players. We've got no players. Our centre-back pairing is Casemiro and Johnny Evans of sort of 20%, who failed a fitness test before kickoff. And yeah, it was just not good. It was not good at the time. So it's difficult to kind of compare those scenarios because it's very, very different, basically. And also, he was asked about Antony. He said there was talk of Antony before the game Tuesday. Did you get the reaction you wanted from him? And Ten Hag said, every player should show a reaction. You train hard, perform in training, earn the right to play. And if you get your moment, you have to take it. Managers can only pick 11 players, 16 players for every game. Do it on a consistent basis. Do it when there's a chance there. You have to perform. So, I think... Antony, it was quite weird actually. I thought on Tuesday, in fairness, and I think with Antony, he's the third best right winger really at United at the moment. He's miles off being in the sort of best starting 11 in my opinion. It's Ahmad, Garnacho, Antony. I think Garnacho. I mentioned it in my fan view after the game Tuesday. I think he's red hot at the moment. I think he's absolutely on fire. But there was this criticism for Antony after the game on Tuesday, which I didn't really get. I felt like it was just a case of just sort of tried to reinforce that he's not very good. But we kind of know that already. He scored his goal. He won his penalty. Was he amazing? He was fine. He was fine. I thought he did okay. But there was this and by the way, Antony's terrible. We're terrible in the game. He was fine. I don't think he played as well as Garnacho or Rashford per se, but he did fine. He's still nowhere near United's sort of best starting 11 or anything like that. But just because that's the case, that doesn't have to mean when he does play in those kind of games we have to go, and he's shit. It's like, well, So yeah, he's not gonna. What he did on Tuesday isn't really going to impact whether he starts on Saturday or not, because he's not. He won't start on Saturday. There's a high chance he won't come on, really. I don't think that's the case. I think the scenario will probably be, once again, maybe not January, but next summer, it'll be, can we move him on? He's on really big wages. That doesn't reflect his quality. Once again, that's not his fault. That is the fault of the people that offered him those contracts and reeked of desperation. But United, no doubt, will be looking to move him on next summer. No doubt about that. I don't think that's I don't think that's the case. I can't see his circumstances or sort of stature at United changing all that much. His appearance on Tuesday will largely be what it is for him this season, I think, which is Carabao Cup, maybe these sort of early stage Europa League matches. Once we get further into the competitions, it'll probably start to dry up. I think he might be a bit fortunate when it comes to the Europa League in the sense of there aren't any Champions League teams dropping down, so the quality of team you're going to be facing isn't always going to be super high. So maybe he will play a few times in Europa League, but that's it. I think that's his ceiling at United, and it's just going to be a case of how effective at Man United are moving some of these players on. And Antony's included in that list. There's Antony, Casemiro, Harry Maguire. Obviously, we know Lindelof's going to go on a free. Eriksen, he's got a year left on his contract as well. So they're those sort of 4 or 5 high-earning players. Maybe Mason Mount in that category as well if he gets another injury. So 4 or 5 high-earning players that I think Ineos will, the football leadership team at United would have already circled and be like, right, next summer, that's who we're looking to move on. That's what we're looking to sell. And I think there was this sort of pushback of just because they didn't go this summer, that was a sign that Omar Barada or Dan Ashworth, that meant that they wanted to keep him. I don't think so. It's difficult to move them on. Why would they want to leave? I wouldn't want to leave. If I knew that I wasn't really up to it, but I was on £200,000 a week or £350,000 a week, and I was settled, why would I move? Why? And I know people go, well, you want to prove yourself, you want to do this, you want to do that. But you do the Harry Maguire, don't you, like last season? You just hope that the space will open up. I'm on a guaranteed deal for X amount of years, and we'll see what happens. There's no You can't get rid of me. You can pay up my contract if you want me to leave that badly, but you're not going to do that for FFP and PSR reasons. So here we are. I will be in training on Monday. You know, that's the scenario, isn't it, with Antony? So yes, but again, I don't think that's going to. I don't think he's going to play on Saturday. But probably be on the bench. Probably won't come on, I don't think. But there you go, guys. That was the press conference for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. A reminder, tomorrow you've got the morning view, Flex and myself. We'll have a preview for Palace versus Manchester United. And we'll also have the Trinity coming up 6 o'clock tomorrow too. And then Saturday, of course, will be match day. So we'll have road trip. We'll have the match view, pre-match, post-match, full-time view, fan views, player ratings. You know how it is. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Click the notification bell. You'll be notified when we go live or a new video is uploaded. I'm out of it. Have a good evening. Peace.